Hi everyone. In this video, I will show you how to set up Kali Linux 2021 in VMware Workstation Pro 16. So VMware Workstation Pro 16 is the latest version of VMware Workstation, and it is way better than VMware Workstation 15 in terms of scaling it to full size of your VMs. That is the full size of the display of the VMs, right? So without doing anything, you should be able to scale the display of the Kali Linux workstation desktop to the native display, that is the native resolution of your desktop. So let's get started. To install Kali Linux, first you'll have to download the Kali Linux 2021 installer. So head over to kalilinux.org, and from there, from this official web page, we should be able to download the installer for Kali Linux 2021. So click on the download uh, button here, and you would be taken to the download page where you should be able to download Kali Linux installer. So we have got lots of options here. So to install Kali Linux on VMware Workstation, please download Kali Linux 64-bit installer, right? I have already I have already downloaded it. So the downloaded file would be around 4 GB, around 4 GB. So let's get started with the installation process. So open VMware Workstation, right, and click on Create New Virtual Machine. Okay. So this would pop up a wizard for creating a new virtual machine. So choose the typical. Let this be as it is. Click on Next. Then here you'll have to specify the guest operating system. So uh, just check this box, the radio button, install a disk image file, and browse to the place where you have downloaded the uh, the Kali Linux installer, right? And then choose the ISO file. Click on Open, right? And here you would see that that VMware Workstation was not able to detect the operating system here. Now, one thing about VMware Workstation is that it gives you the option to easy install various operating systems once it is able to detect which operating system it is. So in easy install, it gives it it actually allows you to set up a VM within a few clicks. But for Kali Linux, it is not able to detect. So no problem. So click on Next to continue. Now here you will have to specify which operating system it is. So is it Microsoft Windows, Linux, VMware ESX, or others? So check on Linux and choose Debian 10, right? So this is the latest version of Debian. So as you know, Kali Linux is actually based on Debian Linux, right? Now click on Next. Again, you can change. You can here you can name your virtual machine. So let me name it as Kali Linux, Kali Linux 2021, right? And you can change the location where the virtual machine files would be created. So by default, VMware Workstation stores your virtual machine files in Downloads folder under Virtual Machine directory, right? So the VM that would get created here would be stored in the Virtual Machines directory, which is here. Let me go to Documents, and you see this folder here. So this folder gets created when you install VMware Workstation on your on your desktop or on your laptop. So click on Next, and here you'll have to specify the disk capacity. So 20 GB is enough, but I would recommend that you give it 60 GB, right? And let and keep this as it is. Split virtual disk into multiple files. So now this thing here is that if you specify 60 GB, it will not block 60 GB of your space on your hard drive, right? So it would just take the enough amount, enough disk space needed to install Kali Linux. right? And it would eventually, as you keep installing softwares in Kali Linux, this size would grow. So this is the maximum disk size, right? So 60 GB is the maximum disk size that you are allowing this virtual machine to occupy, right? So if you exceed 60 GB, it will throw you an error, right? So it's okay. Even if you give 100 GB here, it won't be blocking 100 GB of your disk space, right? So it would grow, start small and becomes larger as you add applications. Okay. So I've given 60 here. Click on next to continue, right? Now here it is ready to create a virtual machine. Okay. But before you do that, I would recommend that you customize your hardware, because at this moment it actually takes up the minimum, the recommended hardware, right? So right now I have got around 24 GB of disk space of RAM on my system. So I would allocate 8 GB RAM here, right? So you can allocate anything you want based on what you have, based on the capacity of your laptop or your desktop. So even like 2 GB is actually good enough, right? So it is just that the performance would be slow, but still it's okay. You should be able to use it. Now I would go ahead and change the processors. So number of processors I would be changing it to two, and number of cores per processor I would change it to two. So this would increase the performance here. And one thing to note is that what you allocate here depends on the kind of processor you have got. So since I have got an i7 and I've got around 8 cores here, right? So if I check my task manager, I see that I have got around 8 cores here. See, local logical processors is around 8 here. So, and if I look at the resource monitor under CPU, you should see 4 cores here. Like you see, there are around 8 cores here, right? It will start with 0. So that is why I have actually selected 4 here. So based on your system, you can leave it as it is, or you can also allocate like 1 or 2 cores here, right? So that is for you to decide. Now let's go. Now go to now go to display, right? Now check on accelerate 3D graphics, right? And then let this stay as it is. Use host settings for monitor. So I have got 1920 uh, resolution. So it would actually give you the resolution. So once you switch to full scale mode, it will give you that resolution, right? And graphics memory, you can leave it as it is. So and then check this stretch mode, keep aspect ratio stretch. Okay. Now close. Now you see the values have changed here, right? Now click on finish. So this would go ahead and create a virtual machine on your system. So you see this virtual machine has been created and you have got these virtual machine files, right? So if you want to get rid of Kali Linux in the future, let's say you have installed it, you don't want it. So there is no installation process. All you have to do is to delete this folder. Now you see we haven't started the installation and the size is only 7.56, even though we have allocated 60 GB of disk space here. So as we install Kali Linux and additional software, this will actually grow, but this will not exceed 60 GB. Okay, so let's get back to VMware Workstation here, and let's go ahead and power on the virtual machine. Now this would load the installer. Okay, so you see this is the graphics install. We have got all these options, right? So you see that when you see this option, right, like when you try to find the mouse cursor, you won't find it, right? Because the cursor is there inside the VM now. So if you don't see it, all you have to do is to now look at the bottom. To return to your computer, press Control Alt, right? So press on Control Alt. You see this, right? Okay. So that would take you out of the VM, right? So now go back again, click on VirtualBox. Click on graphical install, right? And then press enter. So this would so installer actually gives you the graphical the GUI where you are able to select the value visually, right? So it is not a CLI. For example, this. Okay. So now this is the installation wizard. So you have to select the option, select the language, click on continue. Now select location. So choose wherever you are, right? So I'm in India right now. So I would click on India, and then based on your location where you are, you should be able to choose, right? Then continue. Language would be, I would leave it American. You can choose your language, American English. So this is the, I would continue to use the default option, which is uh, which is English. Okay, American English. Now click on continue. Okay. Now detecting hardware. Now it is going to detect and mount installation media. So let this process continue. So um, it is loading additional load installer components from installation media. So now this is where it is actually reading your ISO image. Okay. Now it is detecting the hardware. Now wait for this process to complete. Now this is configuring your network. So now please enter the host name for the system. So host name, leave it as it is, right? Kali, right? And then continue. Now the domain name, you can choose your domain name. So, but you can make up anything. As you can see that you can make something up, right? Anyway, we'll be using this for personal use. So it's example.com, right? And then click on continue. Now it is going to configure the network. Now this is where you have to set up a user, right? So by default, uh, Kali Linux creates a user for you during the installation process, and it does not give you the root access. So once the installation is done, you have to change the password, provide the password for the root user. Okay, so that we'll see once the installation is done. So for now, we'll be setting up a user and a password. So enter the username. I would add my name, right? Click on continue. Now leave this as it is. This is the username of your account. Okay. And then here you have to provide your password. So choose the password, enter your password here. Okay. And then click on continue. Now this is configuring the clock. So the clock would be set based on the location, right? So now wait for this to complete. Now under partition disk, yeah, right. Let it be as it is. Guide use entire disk. Okay, since this is a virtual machine, I'm going to use the entire disk. Okay, so click on continue. So the rest of these things that you see here is right. Guided user and use entire disk setup. LVM is logical volume manager, encryption, and all those things. But I'm not going to use it, and I recommend that even you don't do it. So just use the guided use entire disk and click on continue, right? And then you see now this is out of 64. Overall, it takes around 64.4 GB. Now this is VMware Virtual Storage. Okay. Now click on continue. Now all files in one partition recommended. Go ahead and click on continue to go ahead. Okay. Now finish partitioning. Write changes. Don't do anything with this. Just click on continue. Okay. Now this is where you have to write the changes. So go to yes, click on yes. Okay. and then press continue. Click on continue to go ahead. Okay, so now this is where this now your base system files are actually being copied from the ISO from the installer ISO to your virtual machine folder. Now, if we see, now you see this will continue to grow, I think. Okay, now let's check on the property. Now see, the file size has started to continue, started to grow. Okay, so wait for the process to complete. Now at this point, this is configuring the APT. That is the package manager. Now select the install. Now this is very crucial stage. Now here you'll have to specify what you want to install. Now in earlier version of Kali Linux, which was 2020, now this used to download lots of files from the internet. Now this caused lots of installation problem. For some user, the installation would go for 10 hours because a lot of things depended on the network speed, right? Because the installation would only continue after the files have been downloaded. But here in Kali 2021, the Kali Linux installer, which has the 4 GB size, has almost all the additional files, right? I mean installer package files. Now these are actually called meta packages in Kali terms, right? So what I have done is that I have also checked large. Okay, so you can leave it as it is, but then it also adds additional. I mean, it also adds additional tools on top of the default tools. Okay, so let's continue. Now you see the actual installation has actually started, and this will take some time, right? But it won't take very long as it used to take in earlier version of Kali Linux, which is 2020. So let's wait for the process to complete. Now that's it. The installation is complete. Now we'll have to set up the grub bootloader. And after that, we are done with the installation. Now you see, the installer is actually installing the grub loader. Now it is asking us if we want to install it. So install the grub bootloader as your primary drive. So let it be as yes and click on continue. Okay. Now here in the next step, install the grub bootloader, right? So what we have to do is that we have to specify the path, right? So select dev/sda, okay, and then click on continue. And this will go ahead and install the grub bootloader. Now the installation is finishing, right? And this will, once this ends, this will restart the virtual machine. And we should see the login screen for Kali Linux 2021. So let's wait for this process to complete. Now that's it. Now you see that installation is complete. Now click continue. So now this will actually go ahead and reboot the system. Now the system is actually rebooting. Now this is what we see as the grub bootloader. Okay. Now select Kali GNU/Linux and then hit enter. Now this will bring up the login screen. That's it. Here we are in Kali Linux login screen. Now let's log in. And this is Kali Linux desktop. Okay. Now You see this? This is now, if you click on this, we should be able to enter full screen mode automatically. Now we have actually entered full screen mode, right? And if we check the screen resolution, you see, using settings, display, the screen resolution is 1280 by 720. Okay. Now, if we go ahead and look at the VM, and we see that VMware tools has automatically been installed. Now let's click on this one here, stretch and keep the display aspect ratio. Now, once you click on this one, you see this will give you the native resolution of your desktop. Now, if we go back again and check the display again, so this is the display of my laptop screen. Okay. So this is one aspect, is that once you if you click on switch to full screen mode plus stretch and keep display aspect ratio gives you the native resolution of your desktop. Okay. Now you see, is that let's open up terminal. So by default, Kali Linux creates a user, right? And it does not give you the root access. Okay, so root. So let's say, let me see who am I? Who am I? See, so Salish is my user, right? Now sudo. Now let me enter sudo su. Okay, enter the password, right? Now I have got root access. Okay, now let's create the root password. Okay, so this will allow me to log in as a root user. So passwd, type this command, passwd root. Now we are going to change the password of the root user. Okay, now enter the password for the root user. Okay, retype it. That's it. Your password has been set successfully. All right. Now let's log in with the root user. Okay. So here you see logout. Here you will see switch user. Okay. Now we should see the login screen again. Okay. Now type root and password. Now this is how we have actually logged into. Now you see we have logged into the root user. Now let's go to terminal and see I'm root. And who am I? Enter. I am the root. Okay. Now there is another aspect, like which I now there is another thing which I want you to see, is that let me exit full screen mode. Okay. Now if you click on VM here and click on no, sorry, this like click on this one and then uh, uh, click on suspend guest. Okay, now see what happens. Now instead of shutting down the guest, it actually sleeps. Okay, right? So your work is as it is. Now if we resume this virtual machine, we will, instead of booting up, it will go back to the previous state where it was. Now this is restoring my virtual machine state. Right. So if you are working on something and if you don't want to shut it down, you can just pause. So this is actually called pause. Okay. So even now this is done. Now another thing is, like, let me shut this down. Power off. Okay. Now if you want to get rid of this virtual machine, okay. So all you have to do is to delete this folder. Okay. So if now you see this installation occupies 12 GB. It did not occupy 60 GB. Okay. Now let's say if I want to get rid of this virtual machine. So all I have to do now, if I want to get rid of this virtual machine, all I have to do is to delete this folder and this virtual machine is gone. So let's do that. For example, Kali Linux, remove from here, remove. Okay, this virtual machine is gone from the VMware workstation. Now go to virtual machine folder. Now delete this installation folder also. All right. So this would actually delete the installation completely. So this is gone. Now let me undo this, undo delete. Okay. Now what I normally do is that I keep a backup of this folder. Okay. So what I do is that I just copy and then paste it here. I keep a backup of this folder. Okay. So now if anything goes wrong with my original virtual machine, right, I can go back and restore from this folder. Now let me open this virtual machine from this folder here, from my backup folder. Okay. Now open a virtual machine. I would go to my documents, virtual machine. I would open up virtual machine from here. Okay. So this actually works as the backup. If somehow I were to mess up with my Kali Linux virtual machine, I should be able to easily get back to my previous state without having to reinstall the whole virtual machine again.